What I find really interesting is with St Andrews and the Baptist Tabernacle is that they were both designed by the same guy, Fredrick Menkens.
Fredrick Menkens, German immigrant to Australia and to Newcastle following a group of nuns that he'd met on the boat coming out. He ended up here and a quality architect.
There's over 100 buildings in Newcastle and further afield in the Hunter Valley that were designed by Menkens. He did churches, but he also did commercial buildings, shops, public buildings and houses. And his houses are still in demand today.
The Tabernacle is the oldest building looking over Civic Park. There used to be terrace houses beside here, but now of course we've got the library.
The Baptist Tabernacle is slightly older and it was done to a more modest budget.
It ended up costing £4,750, but that included all the fittings that you see. So this tabernacle is based on the design of the tabernacle in London. There was a very famous minister called Charles Haddon Spurgeon. He was an exceptional preacher and many people would come to hear him. The young 25-year-old Spurgeon said this, "In this city we should build a Grecian place of worship. Greek is the sacred tongue and Greek is the Baptist tongue. Every Baptist place should be Grecian, never Gothic." So he ended up constructing the biggest independent church in London. And he also trained a lot of pastors. And those pastors went to different parts of the world. And when they came over here, they decided to build tabernacles. And I describe a tabernacle as a bit like a cathedral.
The tabernacle sits as a stage show facing the street. And it's really a performance space behind it. So they're doing a piece of theatre behind the set.
It's really all in the drama of the facade. It's all concrete, it's not stone. I was wondering if it had been stone that somebody had painted, but it's actually concrete. And the workmanship in those columns, they're done by hand. And they can't figure out, even today, the records of how they were fabricated are lost.
The tabernacle was completed in 1890. Then the architect Menkens went across the road and began the Presbyterian church over there.
And the two buildings could not be further apart in their artistic style.
Well, I think at St Andrews, it's probably the top building. It was by Menkens. There was a competition, he won it. I did in 1978 an exhibition to celebrate 100 years since he came to Australia. So I went back to his hometown in Oldenburg and I discovered the church he worked on for an architect from Hanover was at Sulligan. St Andrews is better than the Sulligan church, but that was his model for it.
But it's a very fine building. Its lines are beautifully slender.
In the 19th century, all churches had to be sort of Gothic style because otherwise they're not religious.
The space that we're in now is the sanctuary. The activity that takes place up here is the reason that the church exists. Directly below the sanctuary is the church hall, and it pretty much follows the exact same proportions, length and width.
It's quite interesting because the church was squeezed into that corner by the Burwood-Colliery railway line, which runs through Civic Park, under Lehman Street and down Glover's Lane, actually separated that corner between Auckland Street and the rest of the park. You also had the Presbyterian manse next to it, which was a 3-storey Victorian villa. This was demolished many years ago. Menkens was very scholarly in the use of brickwork and colour. So you see the very yellow brick that's built of.
A lot of coal mining districts typically have really pale clay, and that's what produces the pale brick in a lot of the architecture in Newcastle.
He got this reputation in Newcastle for being completely uncompromising. And if he came onto a job site and saw a bricklayer doing bricklaying and he didn't like his style, he'd take off his big fur coat, he'd snatch the trowel out of the bricklayer's hand and he'd show them the proper way to actually be laying bricks on his job sites. He died relatively young at the age of 55. He was a heavy drinker. Uncompromising nature got him in hot water and he spent a bit of time in prison due to a conflict with a contractor he worked on. But his buildings have had such an incredible shaping influence on what Newcastle looks like.